Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be learning how to create sparkles and bubbles that we often see in anime. So like the ones here, so like these sparkles here, this bubble, and these bubbles here, and also these. I'm going to show you how to make all the different types. That way we can make our own backgrounds. So we're going to start with the sparkle first. Let's start off, add in a plane. Here we have our plane, and then let's add in a new material and name it sparkle. Let's delete the principal BSDF, and then we're going to add in a texture coordinate node and then a mapping node, and we're going to use the UVs as our coordinates. So right now the UVs you start on the bottom corner here. We want it to be at the middle, so let's tweak the location a bit and move it up to the middle. So move the X and the Y minus 0.5 degrees, 0.5 meters. And then we have our center point here. Now the next thing we're going to do is add in a vector mass node and set it to length. And what this does is it creates a spherical gradient, and this is what we're going to use as our mask for our sparkles. So it's going to be this part right here in the middle. And let's also add in a color ramp. And then we can tweak the value of the color ramp to change the size and the gradient. We really want the white part to be in the middle. Let's drag this down. And this is too sharp of a fall off, and we want it to be more soft. So let's change from linear to B-spline. That way it's softer. So we want this outside part to be black and then this part in the middle to be white. So we can also add in another stop here and change it to black so it's completely black. Let's tweak this so it's roughly around the middle. All right, let's just do that for now. And this is going to be the center of our sparkle. Again, that's that's part here. And next, we're going to add in the two lines across, so like here and here. So to do that, we're going to add in a separate XYZ node. And let's plug this into the mapping. And also a math node set to absolute. So let's see what this looks like. So this makes a line here on the x-axis. And then, so we also want one for the y-axis, and then we're going to mix the two. So just add in another one for the y-axis. So we have one here and one here. And next we're going to add in a color ramp. We want this part, this line to be white, so it shows. So let's flip this and just move it so we get a thin line all the way here. We have this line. And let's do the same thing for this color ramp. Just duplicate it. All right, so now that we have our two lines, we have our X line and our Y line, and then we have the middle part here for this mask, and now we just have to combine everything together. So to do that, we're going to be using the mixed color node. And we're going to set this as color dodge. So if we connect our color ramp here, so we can see here that we can see the line. So what the color dodge does is it blends the two values here, and the ones that are white will blend, and the ones that are black will kind of fade off. Let's increase the factor here, and then we'll see this. Right, so we have this line here right now. Basically, so this mask is higher, then it'll show more of that line, but we only want it to here. And then, so we just have to mix the other one here. And then let's connect this. So we have this. And now we have our two lines in the middle of our sparkle. We want the, so this is kind of too fast. Let's shrink it down a little bit. And I think the middle part is a little bit too bright. So let's turn this down a bit. And also, maybe this one a little bit more. Okay. And that's basically the sparkle. We can now make it transparent. And to make it transparent, we can add in a emission node, transparent BSDF, and then a mixed shader node. We want the transparent BSDF on the top and emission on the bottom. And we're going to connect the color dodge node here to the factor. So when we look at this, it becomes transparent, but we have all this noise here. So in order to take care of this, we want to go into material properties and then go into render method and change the method to blended. So now we have our sparkle being transparent. And that's what we have here. So if you want, you could just treat these values as you want. You want more shine in the middle, you can move this. I can move this to make it more glow brighter or not glow brighter. And this is the size. You want longer lines here. Maybe make it look like this. The lines here are really long. And also, if you want, you can change the emission, make it more brighter here, or change the color. That's pretty much it for the sparkle. All right, so the next thing we want to do is to have these sparkles scatter all around our scene. And to do that, we can use geometry nodes to make an instance for each sparkle and scatter it randomly across our scene. Before that, let's go into our render properties and go to color management and change the view to standard so we can see the standard color of this sparkle. And then we can go to our geometry editor. So I'm just going to change our view to the geometry node editor. And we're going to add in a new geometry node. So this is going to add in a geometry mode modifier to this plane that we have. And we're just going to use this for our mesh. So instead of using this mesh here, I want to combine everything to one mesh. And we can do that with geometry nodes. So let's use the geometry nodes for this material. So in order to do that, I'm going to add in a mesh grid. So this grid connected to the output is just a plane, the same plane that we had before. And it also has a UV map socket here. And we can use this to link our material that we had. So we can use a set material node and a attribute node. Thrown in attributes. And this will store the UV map information as a name. And it will link it to the material here that we have. So we change this to sparkle. And then hit this. And then we want this to be a 2D vector and face corner. And let's just name this the UV. And connect this as the value. Now we want to go back to our shader editor and link these two materials together, these two attributes together. So I'm just going to make a new window here and go to the shader editor for our sparkle. That's going to be here where we can add in a attribute node. And we're going to take the same UV name, it has to be the same, and we're going to use the vector information. So now we have this material in our geometry nodes without relying on the mesh and the material here. So it doesn't matter here, it only matters here. And then, now that we have this, we can let's start to make our scene here. First off, let's add in a transform geometry node. We want this facing us. So let's rotate the X value to 90 degrees. All right, so this is going to be our instance. All right, so next, let's make our instances. So to do that, we're going to add in a instance on points node, and then you connect our sparkle to as an instance. And then we're going to need our points geometry. So what I found best was to use a circle, mesh circle. If you plug this into the points and look at it, it will put a sparkle instance on each point on this circle. So this circle has 32 vertices, so there's 32 points and 32 sparkles on each point. And you can change the radius to make it bigger or smaller. Now to make it more random, and not just a uniform circle, we can add in a distribute points on faces. And then when we put this here, nothing happens because we need to have our circle to be having faces. So change it to Ngon, and then now this is going to distribute all the points as a face. So in the middle is a face, and there's random points here. And then we can change the destiny on how many we want. And it will just be random. We can change the seed also. Now, if you look in the front view, so we want it to be as a background, so it'd be like up here, right? Like randomly over here. So to do that, you have to change the coordinates here. So let's add in a set position node. And then we're going to put in a, let's see, vector mass node and position node. So this is going to, and you connect this to the offset, position. This is gonna move it. Move the whole thing. So this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis, and then the z-axis. Now we only want, right now, is the z-axis, so we're going to split this. Using a combine x, y, z here. Plug this vector in, and then so now this will control this one. We also want it to be random, so we're going to add in a random value node here, only z-axis only. So now we have random values on the z-axis for each instance. Then you can change this max value to how many you want. Okay, and then we have this. And then now we can also add in a transform geometry node to control the scale of this. So if you just want it to be flat, you don't need the y-axis. Change this to 0. And you can also stretch this out using the x-axis and the z-axis here. And you can also change the location of it if you want in the middle. So then you can change, make it less sparkles or more sparkles, depending on how your scene is going to be. That's pretty much it for the sparkles. So now we can move on to making our bubbles. So to do that, we can actually add on to our geometry nodes for our bubbles. So we can duplicate this to make a new mesh for our bubbles. And let's just show this here. So this is our sparkle. So let's add a new material here. And let's just copy the one that we have and build off the sparkle. So we have to click this to copy. And let's rename it bubbles. And then we can change this to bubble. And let's move back to our shader editor. And let's edit this. All right, so we don't need this or these. And we'll start off with this. So bubble is just a circle with some gradient in between. So let's just use the same color up here and just pick the values here. We have to add in another black one on the inside. Make the inside black, and then we have to try to make an outline here. Try this. And we need another one here. Was that dark? This. Okay. See how this one is? Let's connect this one to our factor. Get this. All right, so we have basically this one, but the gradient inside is still a little more gradient inside. We can expand this so we can see what we're doing. Oh, can move this in. Actually make it more brighter. And we can change this one brighter. Not exactly black. Yeah, gray is good. And so that way this part here is like this part here where it's like coming inside the middle. All right, so there's our bubble material. Now if we go back to geometry nodes, we have to add in another instance for this. But we can still use the same points as our sparkle material. Let's copy the instance on points. Put this in as an instance. And we're going to use the same points. And if you look at this, it should exactly the same as our sparkles. The same position. Now let's join these two together. Join geometry. So we can, this will be on both at the same time. So now they are overlapping each other because they're using the same points. All right, so to make it more random, since every point is the same right now, you can randomize the size by using a random value node for the scale. So if you plug this into the scale of the instance, each sparkle will have a different scale. So let's change the seed to make it random. Random seed, however you want. 1.7 is good. And we can do the same thing with the bubbles. Let's duplicate this. Put this in the scale. And let's change the seed so it's different than the bubbles. All right, so right now the bubbles are on top of the scales since they're in the same position because they're using the same points. You can randomize the location slightly by adding in a translate instance node. So this will translate and move the instances for the bubbles only on X and Y or Z. And we can randomize this too. So if we copy the random value node and set this as a vector, since this is a vector, we can randomize this. So we don't need the Y value. We're only working on X and Z. And so let's just shift this one slightly. And this one slightly. Increase this one. This one, and we can just pick a random seed here. Use the bubbles. Since bubbles are usually larger. Yeah, right around here is good. All right, so that's it for creating the bubbles and the sparkles using geometry nodes. Now let's do the different types of sparkles and bubbles that we see from our references here. So from this reference, this is the one we made. It was like, so it's the same thing as this one. We look at this one. This one has this line here in the middle, right? So we made this one, but also has this cross in the middle here. So let's aim to make this type of sparkle. So let's add in a new material here and just copy the sparkle to make another sparkle. And we'll add in here. So we're going to add in a node that allows us to switch between materials. So if we can add in the index switch node here, what this allows us to do is to switch the material. So if we set this to material, put this into the material here, and choose a material, so sparkle 1 and sparkle 2. This index, so this is the first one, this is the second one. It will change based on whatever one you want. So you have control over whether you want these types of sparkles or these types of sparkles. Let's switch to this one so we can see. Let's go here and edit this one. So all we have to do is have this type of these two lines here, except you just have to rotate it and make it smaller. So to do that, let's duplicate this here. So this is the exact same lines here. And also the color dodge here. Oh yeah, let's really have to have another one. So like this, add it here. So right now there's two of them overlapping, right? Now we can add in a vector rotate node right before the separate XYZ, and we can change the angle of this. So 45 degrees, change the angle. And then we can also make it smaller by adding in a vector math scale and then increasing the scale. And then you can see here that this is not exactly as opaque as these two lines. So we can lower the factor of our color dodge so it's not that apparent. Maybe around halfway. Right, so now then we have these types of sparkles. So if we go back here and we change the index here, if you want this sparkle or this sparkle, you can easily switch it here, depending on your scene. Okay, so we can make the different bubbles. So there's different types of bubbles here. We have this one here, which is just a blur. And this one here is different. So to do that, we can have another index switch. Let's make a new bubble, copy it. Bubble, so we'll change it to this one for now, and then make sure we're on the bubble, and for this one, we just had to make this one more blurry and without the outline. So let's just move our color map. Stops here. Alright, so this cannot be too white. Make it a little bit grayer. Alright, it should be around here. like this. And the transparency is not that high. Means we may be able to make this even darker. All right, so that's this variation here. And the other variation would be this one. Or this one. Where this is obviously a texture where they kind of just paste this on here and then made a bubble shape out of it. We don't have this texture, so we can't really imitate this, but we can get close. So if we just make another one, another copy, and then if we go here, expand this tab, and then we can go to the node and add another item. Choose this as a bubble 2. Close this back out. Now we have bubble 2 here. Switch this to bubble 2, another index. All right, so for this one, we can use this as our mask, but we will make these circles here, these holes here. And to do that, we will add in a Voronoi texture. Voronoi texture with a color ramp. That's what this is, and also use this as the vector. Let's see what this looks like. This is what the Voronoi looks like. So let's just make this color ramp a lot closer to here. And then we will increase the scale. Around 130, so it's good. So this pattern here will be used as this pattern here. And now what we have to do is combine these two together by using a mixed color node, setting it to multiply, putting the color here from this color map, putting in the factor, and then let's see the output. We just increase the factor all the way to 1. Now we have our bubbles with this texture. We can just tweak the values a bit. Here. Here. We want these more white. Okay, this should be black. Yeah. This should be more white. And this should also be a little bit closer. All right, so now we have this pattern. And then if we go back here to our geometry nodes, you can cycle through whichever bubble we want. Now if we look at this reference here, we can see that the bubbles are different than the ones up here. They're kind of all the same here. But it also has this one with it's empty in the middle, and this one is kind of not as transparent as this one. And it basically varies as different variations. But we can also do that in our geometry nodes shader. So let's make a new type of bubble. Copy this one, have bubble 3. Let's Click this node, let's add another bubble 3. Alright, bubble 3. Alright, so now we have this one. So let's make another color ramp to simulate this shape here where it's just the line, the outline of the bubble. So we can duplicate this and tweak the color ramp to have just the outline. That means we move the middle values closer to each other. Make it darker. This one, make it bright. Put everything in closest you can to make the outline. Okay. This is what we got. We have just the outline, which is just like this one here. Now we want to mix these two together using a mix color. Connect these two. So now what this does is that this mix color will, depending on the factor, it will mix between this bubble and this bubble. But we want to randomize it where each bubble has a different factor. So we want some of them to be low factor or high factor. So we can do that by using the attribute node to link our geometry nodes. Because in geometry nodes, we have a random value node. And in the shader nodes, we don't. We don't have this random value. So in order to link these two, we can have an attribute. Name this bubble fact. And connect this factor here to this factor. And then add in a attribute, store named attribute after the instances for our bubble, so which is this one here. Change this to instance. Have the same name. And then we also have to change this to instancer, because these are instances that we are getting the attribute for, and then plugging into the random value. So now we should have random value for each bubble. So let's connect this to our factor. Right here. Let's look at this. Now, as you can see, that some of them have this, just the outline. Some of them have the outline plus the gradient in the middle. And some of them are in between. We can change the scene, however you want. You want these here, these here. That's pretty useful of how to get the randomness from the geometry nodes into your shader to control what type of bubbles you can get. Now that we have our different bubble types, we can animate our bubbles and sparkles. Now, most of the time, these backgrounds are static. They don't really move. But if you have a case where you need to move the bubbles and sparkles, I'll show you how. So first off, sometimes the sparkles, they blink. So one way to do it is to increase the seed, to change the seed here, and it will appear like it's blinking, but this is kind of too fast. So you can control this by adding in a math node. And set it to fraction. So this is going to loop the values of this random value. And control it more, let's use a add node to control it. So as you increase this value, it will cycle through these values on the random value node. And then it will appear as it's blinking. Now to animate this on our timeline, I'm going to switch to our timeline here. Timeline. We have to insert keyframes for this to work. So I am going to add in a keyframe here by clicking I. This is our keyframe. Click our mesh so we can see the keys. This is it right here. And so I am on frame rate 24 PS, so that means 1 second is 24 frames. So basically up to here is 1 second. So I'll just loop this for 3 seconds, so 72 frames. And this at 72. And I'll just increase this maybe up to 1. And then right click, insert keyframe. Now we have to interpolate it. So we have to select all the keyframes here and then change it to linear or Bezier. I'm going to choose linear. And now if we scrub through our timeline, values are increasing linearly and we see our sparkles. Right? And if you want it to be faster, just increase the value at the end. Maybe you want 2, and let's replace the keyframe here, and it'll be faster. You have to play around with this, see however you like. Whichever works for you. Alright, so the other thing that we can animate is moving the sparkles. So we can do that here, and this is a position of our sparkles, and if you remember, this is we're randomizing the X value here and the Z value. And this is the Y, the X. We do a similar thing here that we did with the scale here. Adding in a math node. But first, but a little bit different, we have to add it in the vector. So we have to split this up into the z-axis only. So we have to split this up to, we have to combine this and separate it on the z-axis. So we don't want to touch x and y, they'll be the same. And for the z value, we want to put this into a fraction so it loops. Now when we do this, we're going to loop on the z-axis. Now let's control this by adding more math nodes here to control the values. We can multiply, change the speed of it, and also add to increase the value. Okay, and now Should make this, change this scale so it's not just clamped down here. And around there is good. And now it will scroll up. If you wanted to scroll the other way or on the x-axis, you can just switch this to the x-axis. So similarly, we will insert a keyframe here. Like this. And let's just change this to maybe 2. Insert a keyframe. And then change this to linear. Press the spacebar. It's going kind of slow right now. Maybe you have to increase this value. Make it higher. Yep. Also, the sparkles are kind of small. Maybe increase this. And we have to multiply this. Here to make the size a little bit bigger. Not that big. Here we go. Now we have moving and blinking at the same time. So depending on what you want, you would want to not add keyframes here or here if you just wanted to blink it and just move it. So it's up to you. But these are how you do this. Similarly, we can do the same thing with the bubbles, flashing, but I'll skip that for now. Alright, so the other thing that we can do is rotate the sparkles on the y-axis, so it's rotating, spinning. You don't really want to do it this way or this way, just on the z-axis. So to do that, we can add in a vector rotate node connected to the rotation. And then we want to only rotate it on the y-axis. So let's split this off, find x, y, z. And then similarly, we will put in a random value node and a math node only on the y-axis. Add this. Let's change this to a random value. And then we can animate this. Add node. So once again, we can add in a keyframe here. Go to our last keyframe, add in, change this, add another keyframe, select them all, make them linear. And then as they are scrolling up and changing size, they are also rotating. You can change with these values, find the combination that you like. So now you have the option to change the size, animate the size, the rotation, and the location here. So another thing that we can animate, like in this scene here, where we have these bubbles here, are scattered across the background, but it's more of in like concentrated line. So this is like a curve like this way. Same thing for this one. It goes like this. And we kind of simulate this in our geometry nodes too. So in order to make this one here, we can first, let's make this material, and then we can make the curve. So let's add a new material. bubble 4, and since this is different than these, I'll create a new material completely. I'll duplicate this and set the bubble 4. Let's put this here, add it on. Okay, so that's 4, and then let's go back to our shader editor. And let's see which one this one is. Okay, so it's this one here. So I'm just going to, so you can see what we're doing. I'm just going to connect this. You can see this only. Right. Okay, so this bubble, we only want, it's just like a blur in the center. So what we could do here is expand these here, take out the outline. Don't need this one. We don't need this middle one. We might need another one here. Blacken out the sides. Okay, so something like this. This is our material. Okay, so now let's make our curve. So to do that, we're going to use a curve line. A curved line, and let's see what this looks like. So it's just right now, it's just a line that's going straight up. And then we will put our bubble instances on this line. Let's put in a instance on points and plug our instances in. All right, so now we have our bubbles on this line, and this line only going up on the z-axis. We want it on the x-axis, so let's turn this to 0. Increase this one. Right now there's only 2 points on this line. In order to increase the points, we will have to add in a resample curve node here. And this count is how many points are going to be on our curve. If we increase it around 50, there's going to be 50 points here. All right, so now we want to make this curve into a wave format, so that curves like U-shaped on this path. So to do that, let's add in a position node right after our curve. And we're going to use a sine curve for this. So a sine wave has a wave that fits our needs. So in order to do that, we'll add in a math node. Set the sine. And then we want to use this vector on the offset. So combine XYZ, and then we're going to have to use a separate XYZ. And we need the position of our curve. Put the position in. Do this offset. Assign in on Z and X. So this means that sine is going up and down on the z-axis and going left to right on the x-axis for our position. Right now, this resembles a sine wave. The longer it goes, the longer the curve is, how long it's supposed to be. And we can change this by adding more math nodes to manipulate it. We can add in a, we can duplicate this, add in a math node, set to multiply, and this will control the frequency of our sound wave. And if we add in a add node, this will move our sound wave on the x-axis to the left. We can use these two to control the wave that we want. So say if it starts like this, or maybe we want it to start like from the bottom. If we want to start from the bottom, we can have it like this. If we want to start from the top, we'll just have it like this, depending on which way you want. All right, so now we want these bubbles to be scattered around with different sizes. So to do that, let's go here to our instances part and add in random value for our scale. All right, so now they're random scale, and we also can do the similarly random translation. Let's copy this one, set the vector. Connect this. And maybe tweak the values a little bit to what you want. I think this is good enough. And if you need more points, you can always increase this. That you want. So the next thing we want to do is we want to animate this. We have these bubbles move along the curve. So this will just move the curve itself. We want the actual instances to move. So to do that, we'll add in another set position node here. And then we'll use a where's the sample curve? As you plug the position into the position, this factor will move the instances along the curve. And then if you specify the curve, you'll move the instances along the curve. So this is our sine wave that we made. So just to show a point, if you increase this, remember this increases the frequency. This will go like this sine. Let's put this back. All right, so now we want this to spread out throughout the curve and not just all start here. So to do that, we will have a read a spline parameter node and capture the length of this curve as an attribute for our factor. So let's capture this attribute. And let's use the factor as the factor. All right, so now we have all the points along the entire curve. Yep. All right, so now we want to animate it, right? So we want to have these move along the curve. So to do that, we're using something very similar. We have to loop it. So we'll just use math nodes. Use the friction node, fraction node, and then the add node. So now I think we've seen this a lot, where if you increase the add, all the indices will move along the curve. So we can animate this by moving the actual curve itself or the instances on the curve. Like this. Now let's put all this together. All right, so this is here. So we just have to put in a transform geometry so we can scale this properly. So it's pretending that this is the middle of our scene. We can move this up, move it to the left, and then increase this. So it would be like this. And then if we want to have multiple curves, like I imagine this is this. So there's some on top here and some on the bottom. We're just gonna have to duplicate all these and then change it. Just duplicate this and add it to the joint geometry. Now there's two of them and we can just move this one down and then change the value here to make a different curve. This one not so wavy. Like this. And then maybe move these different. We can also make these in scale. We also scale this. If you needed to. It down. Okay, so then one other thing we can do for this one is that we can change the color of these bubbles. So just like this one here, where these are actually different colors, these bubbles here. So in order to do that, to get random colors throughout this, is if we go to our shader and add in a mixed color and a noise texture, we can use the color of our noise to get some color. So if we connect our color map here with this end effector, change the color dodge and plug this into our emission color, we can get color here. You just have to make the scale kind of low. Right now, all this is the same color. So what we can do is go into geometry nodes and get the random value again. Let's name this purple color. Add this to this scale. All right, and then we can add attribute node here. We have to change this to instance, this to instance. Type this in. Bubble color. Put a random value in. Okay. So now this should be randomly controlling the scale. All right, so it's this one here. That's because I only did for this one. Okay, so we have to do the same for this one. Okay, so there we go. Now it's a different color. If you change this randomly, be random color, rainbow color. Now to finish it off, we can actually create the background for this. So let's add in a background. Do it up here. I'll copy this material since it's very similar. Our background is just a plane. And let's add a new material. Need BG. Is this to BG? And add this in. Alright, so here's our plane. Let's increase the scale. For X and Y. Just move it up. Move it back. That's not good, just shadows. Alright, so let's go here and make our background. So the background is, most of these are just a gradient, color gradient. So it goes from dark red, or dark pink at least, to white. Let's choose that. So let's add in a attribute UV, then the mapping node. And we'll use a gradient texture. What this is a gradient, a linear gradient from left to right. So we want it from top to bottom, so we can change the Z location. Change it minus 90 degrees. And then we can also add in a color ramp to change the colors. Actually, let's make this 90. So we get, actually no, let's do minus 90. But this, change it to B-spline. We have a softer gradient. So this part will be like lightish pink. And then this one would be like reddish. Something like that. And added another stop here. Make this complete even whiter. Yep. Okay. So that's really it for the background. Now all we gotta do is just tweak the values for our background, for sparkles and bubbles. To tweak our sparkles and bubbles if you wanna replicate this scene here. Let's just do that quickly. For the sparkles, so let's increase this scale a bit out. And maybe have a little bit more sparkles and bubbles. Increase the size of sparkles a little bit. Put up bubbles. The bubble seems okay. And then we gotta have this one We don't need a color for this one, so I'm gonna get rid of this for now. It's white. I'll mute these. And we will try to bring this out. Where are they? They're over here. All right, so we have to take these out a bit. Okay. These bubbles too, they have to come out a little bit. And have everything on top of each other. Oh, all right. Just a little bit. These bubbles are too small. We can increase this. Increase the count. Increase the size here. Here. Make this longer. Make this wavy like this. And move this one back a little bit more this way. And for the bottom one, we do something similar. This back. Increase size count. Increase the length. Increase the wave. Increase, this. Increase the size. Okay, so not exactly like it, but it's kind of close. And for the bubbles, we can change the scale. A little bit. Even not have it too much. A little more down. And then change the seed a bit. Yep. Okay, so this is basically the whole effect. One last thing I want to show is that we can actually do this. It doesn't have to be sparkles and bubbles. We can have any type of material here. Or it can be like this one, where these are flower petals instead. So as a bonus, I'll quickly show how you to make this one. So let's just duplicate this. And I'll duplicate this material. Call it petal. Change this one to petals. All right, so we're going to use this one. Default this. Change this to default. All right, so we are going to have a gradient texture set to radio. Having no rotation here, but -0.5 on the mapping. So it becomes in the middle. All right, so now that we have this, we can have a math node. Let's see. Converter math node. Set this to ping pong. This was 5 instead. Minus 0.5, not 0.5. Okay, so we have this right now. Next, we have to have a multiply add node and then a find XYZ. And also a length node. In the same mapping. It's the Y. And a map range node. What we have here is this shape here. So this shape, we increase this. This is going to be our shape of our petal. And this is going to be the size of it. We can increase or decrease the size of this. Ping pong will be, if you lower it, we can have, that's what we need. So we want 5. So this is the shape that we're looking for. And increase this a little bit. We want 5 petals like this. They're kind of rounded. All right, so then we just need another math node set to greater than. Set this to 0. We get no fall off. Now let's make this transparent. Add in a mission transparent mix shader. Plug this into the factor. And also use this to blended. All right, this is inverted. Because the map range node, we have to change this to minus. So right around here. Okay, then we can add some color in by using a color ramp. Add the map range to it and add this to the color. And change this to the yellow. Change this to constant. And we have our flower petal. So it's a little bit, make this a little bit wider. Like around here. Yep. This. Okay. So right now, all these is basically in a perfect star. If we look at this one, here, not a perfect star, this is like a little bit shorter than the other one, like at least this one. This is orange. Let's make this orange. We can do that. We can distort it by adding in a noise to distort it. If we can add in noise and a subtract node, We can connect these two like so, and then subtract, add noise to it. So this is the noise. And let's turn this down. We also want this. Oh, this actually should be switched. And it should also be after the gradient texture. So like this. All right, so now that we have this, so now it's slightly distorted. See that this is slightly distorted here. Increase it, it'll be more distorted. This is no distort. We just want a little bit. Okay, so we should make a little bit more, maybe. Nope. There you have it. And then we can use this as a also as a sparkle. So basically we can actually add it here. Let's do that. Let's add it there on this one. We have it here. We have this. Okay, so there you have it. This is the whole effect and all the different possible scenarios that we can do. And I hope this was helpful for you guys. And I'll see you guys in the next one.